You're listening to Ecto Portal, a journey into the unknown with Anthony Anderson and Verna Wilson.
I hope that you are seated comfortably with the light turned down and the curtains drawn.
Somebody there?
Hello, once again, to another journey into the unexplored, the unexplained Ecto Portal. I'm Anthony Anderson, your host, and I'm here with my co-host,
Verna Wilson.
And we're actually going to do a show, finally, after 3.5 years, about
Bigfoot.
We finally found a Bigfoot hunter, and her name is DIANA ELKINS, and she's actually a paranormal investigator as well, correct?
Yes.
And she's out of Las Vegas, and we're going to have a good conversation with her about both the paranormal and about Bigfoot hunting, what attracted her to it, some of her own experiences, maybe her own theories and ideas.
We've been trying to get a Bigfoot hunter on this show for a long time, and I have to say, there really is not that many out there.
I think there is, but they're very elusive. They're almost as elusive as Bigfoot, I would say. Because, Verna, you've tried a lot.
I've tried a lot. I've tried a few times. One person didn't want to come on. The other person told me I had to pay them. And it was just... I just kind of gave up because they kept eluding us. So I thought, well, we're on to other subjects. We're busy people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a topic that I'm still interested in. I already explained, I think, a number of times on this show, my mom's experience camping with when she had a Bigfoot encounter with her friend.
Go ahead and explain that. Tell that story a little bit again.
They were in the Olympic Mountains up in Washington State. And her and her friend would go camping quite a bit. It was just the two of them. They'd have their tents. They'd have the four-wheel drive Jeep, and they would just go in the spring mainly, and they would go in Olympic Mountains, and they wouldn't really hike very far, but they'd go in far enough. The Olympic Mountains, the Olympic Peninsula is pretty dense forest anyway in Washington State. And there's lots of water around and wildlife. My mom grew up there for the first part of her life, so she knew the area well. Well, they'd go camping in the middle of the night one night with the two of them. It had been raining, but it dried up, so it was still kind of damp out in the woods. They have the campfire going there. They're stayed up, talked, whatever, visited, and they weren't thinking Bigfoot. They weren't Bigfoot hunting. She loved to camp. They loved to fish during the day, which is the whole point of the trip. Mm-hmm. And so they both turned into their tents, and right across from each other, and the fire's in between. And suddenly they heard something moving in the campground, in the woods, breaking of branches and that kind of thing. And my mom's friend got a little nervous. She's like, I don't know, it sounds like there's something out there. It could be a bear. And she was like scared. So she's like, I'm going to go sleep in the car. So she went in the car and started to set up her bed and I think the front seat. And then my mom laid in her tent. And she heard it even more, and she began to smell something really rotten, the most foul smell she'd ever smelled.
Really rotten, not really bad, huh?
Rotten garbage, rotten flesh. So she said, I don't know what this is either, but I'm going in. And she got in the car in the back seat and set up her bed.
And it wasn't a skunk.
It wasn't a skunk. They heard it move through the campground big, and it actually banged up against the side of the car, and it rocked the car.
Yikes.
And the smell was so bad, she said her eyes were watering. It was so bad.
Ew.
And whatever it was looking through the campground. It was walking around the car. And she said it wasn't a bear because she actually looked out the window and it had been standing and it walked around the car.
Oh, wow.
She was so terrified she lay back down. She didn't want to look again.
She didn't want to peek, yeah.
And her friend didn't want to look at all. She was absolutely mortified that something was going to kill them. But I said they both smelled that smell. It was so rotten and so potent that she said that's what she remembered more than anything was that smell. You could just smell it getting stronger and stronger as it got closer to the camp. And then it moved away, and of course they weren't going to look again to see if it was gone. They just didn't hear anything else.
Not with that smell.
So whatever it was, it moved it back into the forest and disappeared. And they laid there in the car at night, and they said neither one of them got any sleep the rest of the night. They were too afraid that it would come back or whatever it was. And my mom said she'd been camping there so much. That was the first time she ever encountered that. She encountered bears before. And you can hear bears. They'll try and get into stuff.
Sure.
And they'll flop around and they make, occasional noises.
Sure.
But you know what a bear sounds like. She knew what a bear sounds
Uh-huh.
like. She said this was no bear. Whatever this was, it was no bear, but it walked around the other side of the car, and she just dropped down and said, I'm not moving.
That's something I never hear from people who are looking for Bigfoot, is you would think that they would have different hygiene than people because they live out in nature and they don't have the same habits we do. So I'm wondering if a smell would actually be one of the first things you would find when you're looking for a Bigfoot or when you can detect one.
Well, it's funny because she wasn't really thinking Bigfoot. And I remember as a kid reading lots and lots of researcher books and TV specials and just things about people looking for Bigfoot. And a lot of the things that those people encountered, the smell is one of the huge ones. Is because these creatures eat animals. They rip them apart. They're going to eat them. That we know of. We don't know. We don't have proof, but you don't know what they dig around in, if they catch a deer, if they eat a deer. You're going to have foul smell. You're going to be all over your fur. I'm sure they get in the water, but she just said it was so foul. I said, it sounds like you might have had a Bigfoot encounter and didn't realize it. You're in the Olympic Peninsula where there's a lot of sightings. So that was her Bigfoot sighting. It was interesting.
Wow.
She never was looking for it. She wasn't a Bigfoot hunter. She
I'm
just
sure
loved to fish and camp.
it didn't make her enthused to find it again.
No. So I've never had one myself. I've never had an experience. How about you?
I don't think I've ever had a Bigfoot experience. I've been out in the woods. I've actually camped in Mount Shasta and Castle Craigs, and I've camped in Panther Meadows. But the most we've ever had was one time something fell on the tent, and we looked, and it was a raccoon. It was a raccoon and a squirrel. They fell on the tent. They actually fell down on it, and they ran off.
Oh, my God.
But it almost knocked over the tent, and it freaked us out because we were asleep.
See, that would scare the hell out of me.
Me and my friends, yeah. So, but other than that, no Bigfoot, but we weren't there long enough.
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to be there long enough. I think you just have to be there one night and something can happen, but it didn't happen.
It's funny, the one big experience I've had when I was a kid, it wasn't Bigfoot, it was the UFO sighting that I mentioned to you before in the campground in Mount Rainier. In I want to say 75 or 76.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
That's my big encounter in the woods, but it wasn't Bigfoot.
Right.
Go figure.
Yeah, so I've yet to encounter, and I'm sure if I ever run across something like that, something will tell me, whatever it is, it's different than the norm.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yep, just keep your senses about you, what you hear, what you smell, what you feel.
And an open mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I'll be curious to hear if Diana's had any experiences.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear all about it.
Being someone who actually pursues Bigfoot.
Right.
In different areas of the country, so I'll be fascinated to hear some of that.
Yeah, and I think what makes her unique is she is a paranormal investigator, so she kind of knows what to look for when she's investigating something that's not known to your normal senses. So I'm very curious when we talk to her how this is going to turn out.
Should we give her a call?
Let's give her a call.
All right, let's give her a call.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello. Welcome, Diana Elkins, to Ecto Portal.
Thanks for coming on, Diane.
Thanks for having me. It's been a long time since I've been on radio. I used to do internet radio and TV, so it's nice to be on the other side of the spectrum.
Excellent. Speaking of spectrum, and on the other side, we know your interest is in paranormal research and in Bigfoot research. I guess let's go back to how you first got into, I'm assuming paranormal research is what you were into before Bigfoot?
Yes. Did 13 years of paranormal research here in Las Vegas. And actually the community kept us pretty busy. Once word got out about our team, we became very busy. We did things a little bit differently than what you see on TV. We did things more like Amy does on Kindred Spirits, Amy and Adam.
Yep.
We were more like that.
What type of places would you say that you looked for in the Las Vegas area? Because that's not an area that people commonly investigate.
No, there's not really a whole lot here to investigate. You can't get into these hotels, places like that. When we first started out, we were gun-ho, just like any new team, looking for places to investigate. And we did it just to get experience at it. And it's like a learning thing, you know. Everyone thinks they go out in the field and they know what they're doing, and you really don't at first.
Yeah.
You learn
as
really
you go,
learn the
too.
spiritual realm.
Yep.
Now I'm different. I don't do that. I don't go to places and look for ghosts. I feel it's disrespectful. I'm not going to go out and disrespect these spirits. They're tired of people coming in, I'm sure, the same people over and over again,
Yeah, exactly.
coming in, asking them the same questions. I wouldn't answer.
Yeah, that's what I always
leave me
ask
alone.
is when people ask questions on investigations and they ask ridiculous questions, I'm like, honestly, listen to yourself. Do you know that you're dead? How long have you been dead? Who killed you?
And those are ridiculous questions. But you know, Diane, I also find, though, that if it's a place that a lot of people don't investigate and they come in and they introduce themselves and ask polite questions, I find that a lot of the EVPs and the feedback that we get are because they're flattered and they like to talk about themselves.
Exactly. That's exactly how I do it, too. I go in, introduce myself, and there's a lot of times where, like, if I'm with another person, we could just be having a conversation between us two and
And
not
they'll be
even
listening?
addressing the spirits, and they'll start talking and answering and interjecting with what we're saying.
Exactly.
And that's interesting right there. I think that's very interesting.
But if you think about human behavior, when two people are having a conversation and someone walks up and is listening, they want to join in, they have their own opinions, they comment, and they're literally joining the conversation. Even though when you're doing an EVP session, you may not hear that third person come up. You're recording them, but that, to me, that's the most common, is they're willing to interject with comments, talk in the background. Most of the times, they're not even talking to us. They're talking to each other.
Exactly. I've had EVPs where there's been two different voices interjecting, and I find it quite interesting. There's so many cases I could talk about with the paranormal. I've had so many experiences. I remember the first time I saw a ghost. My heart dropped down to my gut, and it startled me. But then after that excitement kicked in.
So what?
Because it's such a rarity.
Yeah.
Describe the ghost you saw.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and describe that experience, that first one.
I was at actually at the Armagosa Hotel.
Oh, okay.
And it was like I'd investigated that place on, I think, 3 different occasions. Had a lot of experiences there. Also got a photo, an explained photo. I'll send it to you guys.
Cool.
I was outside. There were some doors that you could exit around the center of the hotel. I was getting something out of the back of my car. I saw this guy walking. I stopped so he could walk by, and he wasn't there. And he looked like a real person, like you or me.
Wow.
Was he dressed like in a
khaki
period
pants.
outfit or anything like that, or an outfit of a different
He was
era?
he was dressed in clothing like khaki pants and a button-up shirt.
So, yeah.
He had
something
black,
random.
he had black curly hair. And then what really freaked me out about the whole thing was a few years later, Amy Allen went in there on the Dead Files, and she did the sketch, and it blew my mind because that was the guy I saw.
Wow. So he hangs around.
Wowee.
Interesting.
No, that was the guy I saw. I was like, that's him. That is him, and he was not nice. He did influence one of my people.
Did they find out any history about him or who he really is?
Actually, yes, he used to work there.
Yeah.
He was more of one of these guys that traveled around. He got a job there, and actually he was found murdered across the street.
Yikes.
There's an empty building. He was found up in the scaffolding with a gunshot wound.
That's awful.
And that is that's not speculation or making up a story. That's the facts.
Wow.
So,
it would be interesting if they ever found
him or why.
It'd be interesting if they ever found a picture that you could look at and say, yep, that's the guy.
That was him. I saw that picture and I was like, oh my God, that was him. That's the guy I saw. So
wow.
In the area that she said he hangs out, that's the area where we felt a lot of heaviness. And that was in the office area. There's an office area way you come into the back of the Armagosa where it's closed down, that part of the motel.
Yeah.
You go through this doorway and you go to the left and then to the left. And he's back in there.
Wow.
It always makes the experience a lot more, the experience a lot better or with more substance when you have the files and the history to back it up, what you saw or what's been recorded, I think.
Exactly.
Sometimes you can't always do that, but if you have it, that makes it so much more, the experience so much more rich, I think.
We even had we had stationary cameras set up in the area. We were in the living part I call it the living part of the motel, the hotel, where you can rent rooms. And we rented a couple rooms, and we were in those rooms, and we were separated from the back area. We had cameras going, and something we were watching on the monitor, something moved our camera to the right and then back into place again. So it shifted from right back to straight forward.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. I've only ever had that once happen in Eastern State Penitentiary, where I set up a couple cameras on a ledge, and literally the camera shifted, and then it was shifted completely back. And it's like, that doesn't just happen on its own.
Right. A lot of things happen there. I won't go back there. I will never go back there ever again.
It was that much of a negative experience, you would say then.
Well, he's the type of spirit that, he's pissed off. He doesn't want anybody there. He doesn't even want the other ghosts there. If he could have that whole place to himself, he'd be totally happy. So going back there and messing with him, I think something bad could happen. I don't want to bring anything home.
Yeah.
I don't want him to fragment off on a little piece onto me and mess with my life, because that's harder than getting rid of a living person. Come on, a living person, you kick them out.
Yeah.
The spirit's a lot different.
Would you call that as a warning to other investigators who want to go to that place? Yeah,
be careful. Be careful what you ask for. You might get what you ask for, and it might not be something you want. So you really need to, if you don't know how to protect yourself, you need to learn how.
Absolutely.
It's very important. Very important. He actually fragmented. We had a team member that looked to us as like a mom and dad. He was 17 when he joined our team. We made him get a permission note from his parents because he was so interested in the paranormal, and they were like fine with it. He's in his 20s now, married with a child, but all of a sudden he stopped talking to us, and his mom called us and goes, "What's going on with Michael?" I go, "I don't know." I go, "He's on Facebook posting vulgarities all the time and wearing all these gold chains, and like I'm this tough Italian kid," and he wouldn't talk to us, and he told his mom, pretty much F me and my husband, and I'm like, where is this coming from?
Weird.
And I told my husband, I go, this happened after Armagosa, because he was calling them out. He was one of those ones I'd keep telling him,
don't provoke.
Do not call them out in a rude way.
Yep.
Don't do this. And this went on for about 4 months, and we went back to the Armagosa for the purpose of pulling him off a mic. And my husband's a shaman, and he's empathic. So he went in there, and he did his thing. And we got a call a couple of days later from Mike. I miss you guys.
Wow. So late turnaround then.
And has he changed since then?
Yeah, he never had any more issues after that.
Was he ever...
He is... He works for fire protection. He's got a child. He's married. He's doing great.
Was he into the paranormal after that, or was that kind of the end of it?
No, he doesn't do it anymore.
Okay.
That comes to show you that the spirit world has much more of an impact on people than people realize. You could see people's personalities change, and you think it's due to life circumstances, but it could be so much more than that. if they're
It could be.
if they're vulnerable and they're influenced by it.
Spiritual influences, exactly.
Yep. And what's dangerous about that is if that person that's being inflicted by something doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's most
Like
of the
a
time.
perfect possession could turn into a perfect possession.
I would say, in my opinion, that's most of the time. Ordinary people don't believe it. They just think that something happened to that person or they're angry about something, but it's really more than that. And
Well, I wonder how many cases of depression are diagnosed when, in fact, they may not necessarily be that they're depressive. It could be that they are suppressive, being suppressed by
Yes.
something else that they can't see.
that's a good term, suppressive.
And
I
so they
like
call
that.
themselves the whole time, oh, I'm manic depressive. You know, I was diagnosed years ago. Like, well, maybe you were diagnosed when this was going on, and then maybe it left at some point, and you just assumed you're just depressive for the rest of your life because that's what you've been told. Not that it
Exactly. I
doesn't
mean, like
happen,
you could go on vacation. Say you're going on vacation somewhere where there's Gettysburg. Let's say you're going to Gettysburg and you're taking the tour, and you're not into the paranormal. You don't think about the paranormal. You don't watch paranormal TV shows. That's not even in your head.
Yeah.
So you're out there and you're enjoying the tour. You go home and now shit's hit the fan
And you don't realize
because
it.
something's attached to you,
Yep.
and you don't even know it. So now your husband thinks, oh, you've changed. I'm getting a divorce now. So it can just totally ruin your life.
Yeah, and you'd never know why that happened or what the circumstance
Exactly.
was that would trigger that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've actually had people come back from certain places and just said, ever since I visited that place, I don't feel myself. I wonder if it was the weather. I wonder if it was because I was there and I just didn't feel, and there was negative energy around the place. And that's when I tell people, you really need to get somebody to remove, or I tell them, buy a smudge stick or buy
Cleanse it.
Palo Santo stick and do it themselves, unless it's real severe, and then they have to find somebody else to help remove, like your husband who's a shaman. Most of the time you don't have to go that far, but if you do, well, that's
If the need's
sometimes you
there.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we used to help families, our main thing was we spent more time talking to the clients than we did investigating, because them talking sometimes and talking things out and them learning and you explaining things to them and empowering them. Them being empowered is the number one thing that's going to get them through it and move them past it.
One thing
The fear,
Yep. I was going to say, in
yeah, the
personal,
fear and everything, it just, the fear, it feeds, paranormal feeds on fear. You got to stand your ground like you would a stranger walking through your house. If a strange guy walks through my house, I'm going to be all over it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? You got to be the same way with the paranormal.
It's true. I remember doing some personal cases where this one family was severely religious, and you could tell their own fear and fervor fed each other to the point where
Yes.
it was escalated way beyond what it really was. And just by talking to them,
Exactly.
they had to actually sit down and, in layman terms, describe to you what was going on. And they realized, oh, well, then you said it was this. Well, you said this happened. Well, you said it because that happened. And we found out later there was a lot of problems psychologically. Like the son had been an arson and set the house on fire, went to prison. The grandmother had passed away like a month before. And we found through a lot of these kind of cases that it actually is more effective to have a psychologist on the team or somebody who has experience than it is to have, a parapsychologist on the team, because
Exactly.
more often than not, it's their own beliefs, their own fears that they've let just escalate to the, oh my God, we're totally haunted, we're all possessed, our house is going to go to hell. When in fact there could be something there, but it might be a lot less than what they think it is. They've just got themselves
Right.
so worked up that when you get there, you're like, okay, we kind of see where a lot of this is going.
I do think
We had a
psychological
case,
events, though, could lead to that, could lead to parapsychology problems, too.
Well, it could, but I'm just
Exactly.
saying a psychologist isn't a bad thing to have on a team.
I
No,
agree
it's
with that.
good if you can find one.
Yeah, exactly.
There are some who are getting interested in the parapsychology field, so you never know. Maybe they want to experiment with it and put it in their practice and
Yeah.
come on
Right.
investigations. So you used to work with clients who would call you in for certain situations. Tell us about some of those clients and what type of situations would they call you in for?
We had they would call with, and they would describe things that were like, you're like, oh my God, if this is really going on, this is going to be some great evidence. And then you get there and start investigating and nothing happens. You don't even catch an EVP. I think a lot of people take their personal problems and blame it on the paranormal when it's not.
Yep, we had a case like that too. Same thing.
We've had lots of cases like that. So what we do, we call it a placebo cleansing, where we'll teach them to cleanse their house. We don't do it for them. We have them do it. We empower that person to take control. Because if you got little kids, they should be able to look to mom and dad for help or protection. Yep. So when these little kids know that mom and dad can take care of it, the kids are happier.
Yep.
So that's what we do with the cases that we really didn't find paranormal activity. And we don't just go once. We go several times.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't catch anything in those like 3 or 4 trips we've made to their house, that's when we go through, we teach them this cleansing, and then we get a call that everything's fine and perfect. We've had cases where I had this one, we actually became friends and got to know her quite well. She has abilities because she's been having paranormal activity since she was a child.
Uh-huh.
Her mom and dad, instead of sitting down with the kids and playing a game of Monopoly, they used to play Ouija board.
Uh-oh.
And
no wonder.
we walked into her house. It was so funny because I walked in her house and we're standing in her bathroom talking. And she goes, the ceiling fans come on by themselves and it'll be on high speed. And the light will be barely so dim that you can't even lower it that low with the knob.
Weird.
And so we're standing there talking and the ceiling fan comes on. We caught so many EVPs in that place. And the thing is she's a sensitive. And until she takes care of learning how to manage her abilities, she's always going to have paranormal activity.
Yep, she's a moths to the flame.
Is she still having them then? Are you in touch with her?
Yeah. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She keeps calling in these mediums and all these people, and I told her, I kind of got upset and said, just don't contact me anymore because you're making the situation worse.
Yeah.
And I'm not wasting my time anymore. You've got to take care of your abilities. You've got to put some time aside for yourself.
Yep.
She's a real estate agent, and she's busy, and she's not taking that time to ground herself.
Yeah, why teach somebody to empower themselves if they're not going to use the tools?
Well, it's
Exactly.
It's interesting because I still look at it as some people who have abilities or empathic, and that stuff happens, and they don't realize what's happening is they're not being haunted. Is they are attracted to them. They're attracted to their energy.
Exactly.
They somehow that person can sense when the spirits are around them, and they don't even realize that they can sense them, but they do. So they follow you around. Things are there. You see things. You hear things, and it's not something that's going to go away because it's not really a haunting. They're just fascinated that you can kind of hear, sense, and maybe see them sometimes, and they don't know why. They're like, this person's different.
And her personality is like that because we could go somewhere physically together. We went to Pioche, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
That girl got us in every building. She got us in every building because of her personality.
Wow.
So that personality, she just draws everything to her, living and dead.
Yep. There's definitely a strong energy there, for sure.
Yes, definitely.
So with all of the paranormal investigations that you did, you finally went ahead and shifted what you were doing to going to the woods and investigating and researching on Bigfoot. How did that happen?
Yeah, what was the trigger?
When I was a little kid, it was 1973, I was 7 years old, and my mother took me to the drive-in theater to see a documentary called Bigfoot, Man or Beast.
Oh, I remember
and that was the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yep.
And I remember how much that terrified me because we camped every year in Northern California when I was a little kid. And then, years have passed, and I told my husband, I said, this Bigfoot thing, I said, I'm really intrigued by it. I really want to get into researching the whole Bigfoot phenomenon because I'm on the fence with certain things with Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
like when they say, "Oh, this kill was done by a Bigfoot." Well, how do you know? Did you see it happen?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. So how can you say a Bigfoot did it? There's certain things, but I do believe that we have an undocumented primate
Yeah.
in
I
our
think so.
wilderness,
Yep.
in our forest around the world. And the reason I believe this is, if you take all the tribes from around the world, including the United States, when they did the pictographs, they all depicted this tall, hairy, bipedal. There was no email.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telephones. There was no communication amongst each other, yet they were all seeing the same thing. That's why I believe there's something out there.
Yep. I think I agree. Absolutely. I was just I was talking to Verna just before we rang you up about the different colors, and I said a lot of it has to do with the climates they're in. Some are in sunnier weather, so it bleaches their fur brown and blonde,
Mm-hmm.
versus the blacker ones and darker browns as there's more rain in different areas. That just different climates have different effects on what they physically look like.
Exactly. And, why wouldn't they be different colors?
Mm-hmm.
We're different color hair. We all have
Sure,
different
that
color
makes
hair.
sense.
This is my theory, and it's just a theory. There's no proof. But this is my theory.
Okay.
What I feel they are, I think they survived from many, 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 many years ago. I think that because of the descriptions that different people have, talked about what they look like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are like a caveman that has survived.
But I guess you'd have to say, though, if all these cultures around the world have these sightings, then this particular species of caveman, if that's what it was, had to have been pretty widespread.
Exactly. And, they're finding animals all the time they thought were extinct.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's
They
true.
found a fish they thought was extinct 1 million years ago, and they found him in the ocean.
Yeah.
There's so much we don't... And you got this animal that is in a habitat that we're not... we go camping, but, that's not our home. That's their home.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you manage to do your research when you were in those woods? What were the first things you were looking for when you were out there?
Well, first thing I do is what we do for the first couple of days is we camp as regular campers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have found through research, when you're out looking for them, you're going to get nothing. If they want you to see them, you're going to see them. If they don't want you to, you're not going to. They could be watching you and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
So we just camp as normal campers and kind of get a feel for what kind of animals are in the area.
Sounds,
First thing I did before I even went out in the field was I got online and I read and watched and researched everything I could, including what a wolf sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
They're different, vocalizations, coyotes, all these animals. That way, if I heard it out there, I could say, okay, that's coyote, that's a wolf, that's this, that's that. And then when you hear something that doesn't sound like any other animal, then you could say it's a possibility you have something else in the area.
Yeah.
So you got to know your environment first.
You have to. Because I didn't grow up in the woods like some people, so I had to, I'm a city girl. So I had to learn everything I could before going out there. There was Arizona, what I don't think people understand or realize about Arizona, 1/3 of that state is pine forest.
Yep.
It is, yeah. Some of it looks like California,
Forests
I think.
and mountains. You got all kinds of stuff there.
It's beautiful.
It is.
And there's been 32, I believe, on the BFRO website, and thank you, Matt Moneymaker, for sharing all that information. I believe it was around 32 reports coming off the Mogollon Rim. And the Mogollon Rim has several campgrounds, and that's actually where we've gone camping. In fact, we were there last year on Memorial Day, and the whole campground emptied out, and we were the only ones there. So that was a blessing.
Wow.
My husband was with me and a friend of ours, and they went into Payson to go get supplies. So we're talking they were going to be gone about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was left by myself in the campground with my dog. And you want to talk about spooky? The haunted building.
It gets super dark. I've camped in the woods before in Mount Shasta. It gets very dark and scary.
Yeah, except for my campfire, that was it. So I had my camera on a tripod, and I'm sitting there with my dog, and the coyotes start in, and they were about 50 yards from my campground. and they were chattering away, and it scared me because I had my dog.
Yep.
So I put my dog in the tent, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, the camera. So I run out real quick, and I turn the camera on because I have a night vision camera. So I turned on the camera and let it start recording because they say Bigfoot hangs with the coyotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, if this is true, maybe there's one in the area, and maybe I'll get it on camera. So I'm in the tent, and it got real quiet. The coyotes stopped making noise. And I'm sitting in my tent, and I hear this scuffling come up to my tent. And my heart just dropped, and I'm like, you better get out of here. I tried to use a man voice. Like, you better get out of here. Because I heard it, and it scared me, and I had a shotgun with me. And so I'm standing there, and then it got real quiet again. And then I could see these lights coming from a distance, and it was my husband coming back.
Ooh,
And I was so grateful. And I looked around the tent, and unfortunately around my tent was all rock, so nothing would leave any footprints, not even a coyote.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a coyote. I don't know what came up to the tent. But yeah, it scared me. And then there was another time where we were camping in Arizona, and this was before the Bigfoot research started with me. I was in a tent, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, I sat up, and something didn't feel right. I felt very uncomfortable and nervous, anxiety. I got up out of the tent, stoked the fire. My dog comes out of the tent, and all of a sudden, he looks straight ahead, and he bolts into the forest.
Uh-oh.
I yelled his name. He came back. I put him in the truck. My husband comes out. I go, something's out there. So we got, those 3 million candle powered spotlights?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah, we started scanning in a full circle around us and seeing nothing, absolutely nothing. I didn't know if it was an elk, a coyote, or what, but there was nothing. We saw nothing.
Did the dog come
So
back?
I don't know what. Yeah, I yelled at him. He stopped dead in his tracks because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't see anything. I didn't know if it was. I didn't want him getting attacked by a pack of coyotes.
Yeah, that's
So
bad news.
And your camera never recorded anything or never pictured anything?
No, nothing. We got nothing on camera, nothing. And so we packed up. We packed up and left at 2 a.m. And my husband, he's not the kind of person that gets scared about things. He was kept turning around. He goes, I feel like something's watching us.
Yeah. Probably from
So
a distance,
we
I would imagine.
I would imagine. We went camping. The only thing I've really experienced is tree knocks. I've heard tree knocks out in the forest. And y'all know that at 1 o'clock in the morning out in the pitch black, is there really going to be a person out there walking around
Yeah.
with a bat or a stick hitting on a tree?
Yeah.
Unless
Pretty
it's
unlikely.
actually a Bigfoot researcher.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You can't just come out and say, is that you?
Yeah, exactly. Because you know how dark the woods is. You can't see your hand in front of your face.
Yep.
So you tell me how someone's going to walk around out in the woods without a flashlight.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why it's been so hard to capture a real Sasquatch or Bigfoot, because it's so dark. The woods aren't exactly the safest place, and we have very little experience doing it unless you're an experienced explorer who does that all the time.
Exactly. I mean, you could have, Dr. Maria Mayer. She even stated that when she was out in the jungles of Africa and Madagascar, places like that she had a silverback gorilla 5 feet from her, and she didn't even know it was there.
Wow.
Well,
Tells you how
that's
fast
kinda
they can
scary.
move. Yeah, that's very scary.
Now, people have seen footprints which looks like a Bigfoot walking across a trail. I'm surprised they don't take samples of the dirt and get it to be analyzed to see.
I think people just, in the panic or excitement of the moment, they might not even think about it.
I think that's a good thing to do myself, but that's just me.
I do too. I think gathering soil from these nests they find, gathering soil like from footprints, absolutely should be done. I take all my stuff with me. I've never found anything other than a bear print.
Yeah.
I would love to find a print. That would be exciting to me and kind of nerve-wracking at the same time. You hear people, well, if you saw it, why didn't you follow it? Well, they're huge.
Yeah, and they move fast,
and
too.
And what do animals do out in the woods? If they feel threatened, they're going to attack. Now, how do you know it's not going to attack you if it feels threatened by you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say her name, but there is a lady on YouTube who claims to be a Bigfoot researcher. She thinks that one lives in the vicinity of her property. And she's talked about her evidence, and she's talked about gathering certain sticks and rocks. And she shows the evidence on her YouTube videos. And I went ahead and I invited her, but she declined to come on. And that's okay.
Right.
That's her choice. But I think she did a pretty good job of trying to show what evidence she's gathering. And I'm wondering that, well, of course, if it's in her vicinity of her property, she has more time to do that. But I'm wondering...
Yeah, because I'm in the city. I got to travel.
Right. So I'm wondering if some Bigfoot researchers should actually get together, have a convention or a conference and say, this is what we should try to do, and sort of
Well,
get a list together.
They do have conferences.
They do.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, of course they do.
Oh.
Just like you.
Yeah, they have all kinds of them.
And, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Big ones.
You can show how out of it I am with that.
Yeah, they have huge ones. Yeah, they've got them with Cliff Barrickman and James Bobo Fay and all these top-notch researchers and scientists show up for these. I would love to go to one, but unfortunately they're always in Oregon or Ohio or places like
well,
that.
Well, that's where the woods are.
Well, there's sorts
exactly.
of woods.
I think the gifting thing is a good thing to do. If I was in an area where there'd been several Bigfoot, sightings and things like recent ones, I think gifting is awesome. I've talked to a guy in Oklahoma that when he was 12 years old, he had one that was near his home. He lived in the woods with his parents. And he said he would leave gifts and he would leave gifts back.
Wow. See, that's interesting.
Did he ever take pictures of it?
No, he didn't. He was only 12 years old.
Oh, right.
So,
okay.
At that age, you're not thinking about taking pictures.
That'd be good to put like a game cameras up, hidden game cameras, and then just record when you give a gift, when one comes back, and how long it is, the dates, the time of year, It'd be interesting to do an experiment like that in a scenario where that actually would work.
Exactly, you're correct. I could tell you there's a guy, the reason I went to this one area last time I went, the Memorial weekend, was there's this guy that posted a video on YouTube, and he was camping down there around the Payson area, and he said the campground was really packed, so he drove past it and went about 8 miles out in the middle of the forest. So he's at his campground, and he's got his video camera going. He goes, okay, I'm hearing these weird sounds like these monkeys, and you could hear it in the background, whoop, 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 whoop,
wow.
And this chattering sound, and he goes, I don't know if I'm going to stay, So he goes ahead and he decides to stay. And then he pops his camera on, and it's like 2 a.m, and you could hear something throwing stuff at his travel trailer.
Oh, Jesus.
Get out of here.
Was he by
and
himself?
the next morning, he was by himself with his teeny little dog. So he gets out the next morning and he finds footprints. And he's videotaping all this. He's on YouTube. I'll send you guys the link.
Yeah,
please
I
do.
wished I had the experience he had. He actually, if you look at the comments under his video, you could see him and I communicating about the exact location, because I'm going this summer. I'm going to that exact location.
Wow.
This summer.
Now, besides Arizona, you've been to other parts of the woods, and what were some of your experiences in other parts of the woods where you think there might have been a Bigfoot, like Oklahoma,
Colorado, Glenwood
yeah.
Springs, Colorado. We camped at a resort there, and the only thing I heard 2 nights in a row was wood knocks. We were in the tent about 1 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden we hear that. And my husband was, did you hear that? It was a wood knock. I go, I heard it. And it was we were camping on the river's edge. You can rent these campgrounds on the edge of the river.
Yeah.
Across the river was just a solid rock wall. And on top of that was nothing but acres and acres of pine forest. And that's where we heard the tree knocks come from 2 nights in a row. So Colorado's had a lot of activity as well. That was the only experience. We hiked the next day, nothing. It's like a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. What is that when they knock on the wood knocks? What are they actually doing? Have they figured that out?
It's all speculation. In my eyes, it's speculation. There's no proof. no one's actually seen a Bigfoot pick up a stick and hit a tree with it.
Right.
So they're speculating it's Bigfoot because nothing can do that except something with hands, and that's humans or Bigfoot.
But would be a
Bears
sign,
don't pick up sticks.
But would it be a sign like of aggression, or I'm trying to get your attention?
I think communication. I
Okay.
think it's communication, because that
Or to
came
scare
so
you
far
off.
from us. No, because it was across the river and on top of a ridge. So
Okay.
we were no threat.
Yeah.
The campers are no threat. They know the campers are there. You know, the campers are not a threat. There's a river between them and us, and a rock wall that you're not going to climb up it unless you're a mountain climber, a rock climber. But I think it's communication.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're saying. What's one knock mean? What's two knocks mean? You know, who knows?
I'm just thinking like when primates do that to get the attention of other primates or people, sometimes they'll bang against something and look at the reaction to see if there's any, and then they'll do it again. And I'm just wondering if some of that instinct is still there. It's a way to, I know you're there, but I want you to know that I'm here as well. What can I do? Bang, bang, bang. Something like that?
Exactly. Or it could be, this is my territory. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. Yep.
Keep away from mine.
Yep.
But I don't know. I kind of wonder, and where my curiosity sits with the whole situation is, are they a family unit? Do they live like mom, dad, and kids?
Yeah.
And then when the boys grow up, do they push them out and make them go out on their own? It's all, there's so many questions.
Well, in this changing
need to be
civilization,
answered.
how do they manage to survive for so long living
See,
like
that's my biggest question is, and there's so many sightings all over the world in different cultures for centuries, yet nobody really physically, I have one other than a rubber suit in a freezer. We won't talk about that story.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
An actual physical, here it is, we found one. How do they stay hidden? Where do they go? Are they going underground? Do they have somewhere else they can go that we just can't find? Do you know what I mean?
I think they utilize old mines and maybe caves to get out of the weather, and for that's where I would live if I was out in the woods. I would live in that. I mean, they've got so many millions of acres of untouched forest where man has not even set foot.
Yeah, and that's their house, so they would know it.
And they could be out there, and you're not going to see them because you're not out there. You're not going to see one sitting on your couch.
Yeah, not that we know of.
Unless you're watching TV.
Yeah.
And there's been a
I'm
lot of
gonna
TV
keep
shows where
trying.
they're looking for Bigfoot, and they try to
Right.
put video evidence, and I don't see any. I mean, I haven't watched many of them.
I always say that the Bigfoot hunting TV shows are a lot like the paranormal hunting TV shows in that most of the shows are spent looking, investigating, perhaps sometimes experiencing ripples from some of this, but not necessarily getting what they're looking for. It's shows about investigations and researching more than actual finding.
I think the show that really impressed me was the latest one, the Exploration Bigfoot.
Yeah, I was watching some
That
of
was
those.
on.
Yep.
Dr. Maria Mayer, I love her because she is a skeptic, but she's so open-minded that there could be something else out there. And she doesn't do it with sarcasm or rudeness like another person did on another show.
I think we know what show you're talking about.
I think we know what show you're talking about.
Exactly. I like her attitude with it.
Yeah.
The way she gathered her evidence, and she kept that skeptical side of her going, but she wasn't to the fact of where she was saying, "Oh, come on now, was it really a Bigfoot?" She just, I like her. And I did some communication with her, and she's a really nice lady.
See, I think that's the most important, at least for a researcher, is you have to be very skeptical because everyone around you who isn't into it's going to be even more skeptical than you are. So it's good. A good, healthy skepticism is good. And then to have an open mind to want to experience and look at things differently, that's the other half, I think.
Exactly.
If it's a professional team, bringing a primate expert who has worked in zoology may not be such a bad idea either.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's great to have someone like that on your team. You can't have everyone on your team believe in Bigfoot, because then everything they hear say, oh, that was Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Oh, look, there's a tree
exactly.
break. A Bigfoot probably broke this because it's pointing in that direction. Where's the proof?
But
Yeah.
Where's the proof?
but somebody who's familiar with nature patterns of certain animals and certain primates may be helpful in figuring out.
Well, forest rangers, hunters. There's just
Exactly.
all kinds of people who know the forests
Right.
that would really, really be hikers, professional hikers, guys that go hiking nonstop year round. Those guys are good. They know the animals. They know where animals move, how they move, where they go, what they eat, where they live, where they
Everything.
sleep. Yeah. Those are the people
Exactly.
you want on your team.
And you still may not find him, but you have some better clues than you ever did, because you have people whose perception may not necessarily be finding Bigfoot, but knowing this could be this, or this is not anything to do with anything in nature.
The process of elimination, just like in paranormal investigation, you rule out
Exactly.
that, you rule out that. Well, this wouldn't have been it, or this is probably what you heard. This is what you obviously saw. You have to rule that stuff out to see what's left.
I think the best place to look, actually, because they could be anywhere. I mean, you look at the most recent sightings and all that, but you're still looking for a needle in a haystack. They may not be in that area anymore.
Yeah.
I think the best thing you do, if you could camp somewhere close to water, because what I like to do is go around these little ponds and lakes,
Yeah.
and I like looking for animal signs, because they come down to get drinks. You know, your deer,
that's a
your
good
bear,
idea.
your
Yeah.
coyotes, whatever. And that's a great place to start, because if a Bigfoot's coming down to get water, and you know around the water's edges it's usually kind of mucky, that's a great place to find a footprint.
Not to mention, if you want to catch a Bigfoot who may be coming down to the water's edge, to catch that deer who's taking a drink of water, it's a good place to catch
Exactly.
food when food is looking for water.
Because, you know, they did some research, and they always thought that gorillas or monkeys only ate, you know, plants and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they actually got video of a chimp eating meat.
Wow.
Do you think that has to do
So-
with climate change and the climate and the climate
It could be.
making their food more scarce, so they're turning to meat? And maybe
Yeah.
there's
Look in the winter time. The winter time, your plants and things, some of the things in the berries and stuff that animals eat out there, it's not there in the winter time, so they have to change their diet and maybe go to fish or small game.
I would think the one thing with climate change, I bet you Bigfoot, since it's lasted this many centuries, I think Bigfoot could adapt to climate change. It would move to
I do
where
too.
it would live, it could move, it could just find a way to keep surviving. You just have to shift around.
and maybe in
And then
that
you got the
shifting
whole-
around, you might be able to find him somehow.
Exactly. And then you got, what was I going to say? Okay, I lost my train of thought.
Climate change, they can adapt.
Oh, the paranormal end of the Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
People are saying, I was looking at it and it just vanished into thin air, and there was these lights coming in on the sky, and then all of a sudden there was a Bigfoot. Just like on Explorer Bigfoot, they saw the lights in the forest,
Yep.
and then they got that hit on their FLIR camera. I don't know yet. I'm really on the fence about Bigfoot and UFOs, or Bigfoot and paranormal, because I'm in the infancy of this research, so I got to start with the basics
Yeah.
before I even enter that spectrum of it.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because one of my, obviously it's an idea, a theory idea more than it is reality, clearly, is if you think about how obscure they are, how people see them, pretty much they see them more when they're not looking for them, when they do appear, and they're so
Exactly.
random and nobody can find them again in the same spot. I mean, nobody's captured one. We were talking about this before, me and Verna were, that if there is a way that these cryptids, these creatures can actually come from somewhere else, come and go, if they're coming and going, they have the capacity to come and go from, let's say, going out further, another dimension, this explains why they can come and go and disappear so quickly, is they have the ability to do that. And this would lean towards that, where if it appeared from out of nowhere or disappeared, that could explain some of that. Now, that's obviously a very highfalutin theory, but it's interesting if you think about it. All this time, they've survived and they've managed to maintain, and nobody's captured one because they can disappear and vanish when they want to.
And there are energy dimensional spots in forests that even scientists have discovered. So you never know with Bigfoot.
Well, I believe the forest has a lot of paranormal activity going on. People lived in the forest, your tribes. They died there. There was grave sites out in the middle of nowhere in these forests, you know. Yeah. So why wouldn't there be some kind of paranormal activity going on? Along with negative stuff as well. The forest is a spooky place.
Yep, and
very spooky place.
You got those stories with the national parks that people literally vanish. Their shoes are still sitting there with their feet. Only their feet are still rotting in their shoes, but they've disappeared. Stuff like that, where nobody knows what happened to these people. They didn't just fall down and die. An animal didn't carry them off and eat them because their clothes are just laying there. There's no reason they should have died in there. They can't. Well, where's the rest of the body? Where's the head? You know, you're like, if an animal chewed it off, you would see it. But if it's cut clean off, you're like, what happened? There's so many weird stories that happen in the woods in some of these national parks that, you know, having Bigfoot, that's not that far off.
You know, people say, well, why haven't we found any bones? You know, well, the only bones I've ever seen out in the forest is deer. I've seen deer bones on several occasions. Bigfoot, we don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of animals, when they're sick and they're going to die, they'll isolate themselves into a place and they'll die.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have all this forest out there, and it's very humid. Things don't last that long out there. They did an experiment where they took a deer carcass and they set up a time-lapse recorder. In 2 weeks, you couldn't even tell there was a deer there. The earth absorbs everything. You've got porcupines that eat bones. You've got coyotes, all these animals.
Yep.
Why would, you know, I could see why we've never found a body. We don't know if they bury them. Do they bury their dead? We don't know.
And if they're good at hiding, if they're sick or wounded, they're going to go somewhere off and hide anyway. They're not going to stick around and just sit there. They're going to want to go and get away from whatever's threatening them. And if it's someplace hidden that only they know about, if that's where that happens, then they're going to be gone after that.
Especially if they're out where you can't reach them, like there's no trails. If there's a place where you have to be dropped by helicopter and they died out there, you're never going to find them because 20, 30 years could go by. There's going to be no remains left, nothing.
Well, if you think about animals are good with blending into nature so that they won't be detected, I'm not surprised that a Bigfoot being would have the same ability. And that means including detecting from us, from so-called predators. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily like to call Bigfoot researchers predators, but to a Bigfoot who's not used to being around civilization or humans in civilization, they could be seen as such, even though that's not always the case.
See, I wouldn't doubt even if Bigfoot didn't bury its own, because I remember hearing stories about people who saw like a family unit, like a male, a female, and a child traveling together. If there's a family unit out there, I could see where they would probably have some kind of burial or a place where they put them after they've died. They know that they're dead, so they go put it somewhere. It's just, I could believe
they definitely have a language.
Yep.
They definitely have a language of their own. There's been recordings that have been analyzed, and there's been syllables and things like that. We don't know what they're saying. And I've listened to these recordings, and it's so weird because they sound so Asian to me.
That's interesting.
They sound so... If you guys go online, go on YouTube, and there's so many... what was his name? Ron... I can't remember his last name. Him and a guy went out in the 70s in Northern California, and they set up recorders, and they went there every year for many years. So these Sasquatch were coming around them, around their campsite at night, and they recorded them having conversations, and it sounded so Asian to me.
Weird. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then you look at many myths and tales from since ancient times, and a lot of these myths and tales talk about a large, hairy, giant person coming from out of the woods. And it makes you wonder if they were seeing a Bigfoot species back then, but they didn't know how to describe it. So it made its way into myth and tale, and now it's making its way into modern researchers.
Well, look at the pictographs from native tribes of something hairy and tall.
Yep.
And these things, like I said, these tribes didn't even speak to each other, but they all have these pictographs with these drawings of this hairy bipedal figure.
Yeah, some commonality between them.
If there is a species of Bigfoot, now we all know that humans tend to evolve where people are taller now than they probably were a century ago. People have abilities that they've accumulated from DNA. Why do you think that possibly a Bigfoot tribe has evolved where they're different than a Bigfoot tribe that we could have seen in the last decade or the last century?
Absolutely. If you look at, like they say, Gigantopithecus, that no one believed in that until they found the jawbone. Yeah. And he was huge. But I believe sometimes they use their knuckles a lot. And I think maybe Gigantopithecus could have evolved into Bigfoot, or maybe Bigfoot is the missing link.
Yeah, I know
between
that
human and ape.
Yep, that was a big theory too. Is that could be the case, and if that's the case, that they've obviously moved on. They've still exist. They didn't necessarily, their own version of the species in between, the missing link, didn't evolve into us where they are currently. They maintain a certain, I guess, marker on our evolution, where that marker of that particular stage continues to exist, even though obviously a branch of us might have come from that and have evolved. They still exist, which is interesting.
I think the only way anyone's going to get any real proof, well, number one, they would need a body, which means one would have to be killed, and I so hate that.
Yeah.
But I think if I had money, and I didn't have to work, I would pick a spot, and I would live there for years. Because if you could gain a trust with them to where you could actually observe them doing their thing without them caring that you're there observing them, that would be the most awesome scenario in the world.
Yep. I think that's the only way you're ever going to really capture serious evidence is someone doing that. But then nowadays,
doing it long term.
Nowadays, everything's so over publicized, and everything's social media, and everyone has to look at everything all the time. I don't know if you could do that. Too many distractions. I think the only way you could do that is if nobody knew that was going to happen.
And I think the scientific community would take it more seriously if there wasn't so many hoaxers out there. Yeah. They've totally ruined it. Yep. Because I do believe something exists. Cliff Barackman, he's had sightings. Bobo has had sightings. And I believe them. I don't think that they lied just so they could get on TV. I believe they had their experience. That's why they're doing this.
Yep.
So we need a Bigfoot Jane Goodall.
Yeah, we need
exactly
a new series. Jane Goodall, Bigfoot Hunter. That's what we need.
Yeah, somebody like her who spent time and did it for a long term, and she was able to change.
It's going to have to be someone with a personality. It's going to have to be. I think there could be a possibility if there's someone out there that just has that aura about them that a Bigfoot would trust that person. It would take a very special person.
Now here's the next step. Say they find Bigfoot, they gain the trust, they're able to find evidence. What's next, you think, in the Bigfoot research after more evidence is gained and they know more what they found at that time?
I think that someone could sit there and document for years and sit there with a video camera and watch them interact with each other and all that, and the scientists are going to say those were people in suits that you paid to do this.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you took a selfie with the Bigfoot because he trusted you, I'm just joking, but yeah, I know
they're not going to believe it.
Of course they're not going to believe it.
Unless they have a body, they're not going to believe it.
Same thing applies to paranormal. A picture of a ghost, a video of a ghost appearing and disappearing. Oh, what effect did you use? Did you use Adobe? What? I don't know if you're ever going to be able to prove it.
Who cares what kind of camera it was? A picture's a picture.
Yeah.
You know, a video's a video. It's
true.
Just you either believe it or you don't believe it.
Yep.
And if you're serious in any kind of field, no matter what it is, if you're faking stuff, you're just ruining it for yourself.
Yep.
And it'll eventually be found out anyway, and it can ruin it for other people who are serious.
And it has.
I'm sure it has.
I was going to say,
It has.
Lots of
really
Bigfoot
has.
TV shows, lots of paranormal TV shows have completely crapped on the science of the real subject.
With research, I don't need all this fancy equipment. All I need is me, my recorder, and my camera. That's it.
You know what's funny is
true.
that applies.
It's so true.
I think that would apply to the Bigfoot hunting. I think it applies to paranormal investigation, and I think even UFOs. I think that's all you really need for all three of those.
It's how they did it back in the old days.
I do not have a REM pod. I don't have a K2 meter. I don't have any of that stuff. I got my digital recorders, and I've got my camera.
Yep. That's exactly
all
what
I
bring.
need.
That's all I ever bring anymore. It's funny, you can always tell the newbies because they bring everything.
Oh, they spend thousands of dollars on equipment, and they come in with these big cases of equipment. I don't know. Save your money. You don't need all that. You can use flashlights.
Yep.
You can use the flashlights. You don't need to spend a bunch of money to capture paranormal activity. If something wants you to see it or feel it or know it's around, it'll let you. If it doesn't want you to, it's not going to. I don't care how much equipment you have spread out. If something doesn't want to come forward, it's not going to.
Yeah, but they usually it takes them a few years to figure that out. And I noticed the ones that I talk to, that I investigate with, have been doing it for decades, and they bring just what you listed, and they've realized in time the best tool is yourself.
It is. Trust your feelings. Trust yourself.
Absolutely.
And you got to learn to separate. You got to learn to separate. When you go into a place like the Goldfield Hotel, you can't go, you're going to go in there and you're going to be like, oh God, there's spirits in here. And what was that? Was that a ghost? I wonder what made that. Oh, that had to have been. You got to trust your feelings. You've got to let go of everything and go in with an open mind and no expectations.
Well, that's always been my approach.
Cannot go in with expectations.
Yep.
Well, that's always been my approach, because I've talked to people who said, well, I've been to this place or I saw something, but it could have just been me, my imagination. And I tell people, learn to trust yourself. The more you learn to trust yourself, you're gonna see pretty soon the difference between what's your imagination and what is actually you're actually experiencing, and the fact that you're actually experiencing something. And besides the fact, your intuition, there's some part of you that gets triggered anyway the more you do this, and you learn to find out what's your intuition telling you as to what you're actually imagining. You learn the difference after a while.
You do. And here's my thing is, have you ever went to someone's house, like say a married couple, and you go to their house and you come in and like, oh, hi, how are you? And you're like, oh, I'm fine, how are you? And you could feel the heaviness because you could tell that like maybe they've just been arguing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Where you can get to that point, you don't need that equipment.
Exactly.
You don't.
In fact,
and here's another thing I tell researchers. Everyone goes in the dark and they turn out the lights and they want to be in the darkness for the paranormal investigation. If you want to see a ghost, turn on the lights.
Actually, the one way I do turn the lights off for one good reason, if you're with a number of people investigating, and I think this is the first thing you should do, obviously with Bigfoot hunting as well, spend 20 minutes, if you break up into teams, the first 20 minutes, and everybody sit down, don't say a word. Not a single word should be spoken. Listen to everything in the building or wherever you're at.
Mm-hmm. Take in the atmosphere.
Understand the sounds around you, the animals, the cars, the air.
Exactly.
Vents, whatever.
Exactly. You're right. That's what we do. Exactly.
But the only way to get those people to do that, I hate to say it, is to turn off the light, and a lot of them will just shut up and sit there. If the lights are on, they just think they can start talking.
That's a good point, Anthony. It's a very good point.
That's what I use to turn the dark lights off for. So
and be good at your research, because we picked up a vocalization one time, and guess what it was?
What?
It wasn't a spirit or a ghost. It was a drive-through fast food place speaker down the road. You know how sensitive these recorders on? Yeah, it picked it up.
It's amazing how.
And one time I thought and make sure you eat before you go. No,
because that's for sure.
I picked up gurgling, and my stomach gurgled.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a, you know, and it was, what was that? That was no, that was my stomach. I announced it. My stomach just growled.
That's the reasons why I bring little snacks and chocolate with me whenever I'm on it, because whenever I'm on an investigation, because spirit energy, in my experience, tends to drain you after a while. Even though you're going and you're doing really good, you need to keep replenishing your energy. And I agree with you. You don't want your stomach rumbling, and there you go. What's that? Well, they captured your stomach, not an EVP.
Gurgle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the next day, I always felt super drained. We called it the haunted hangover.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
After
true.
investigations, like the whole next day, just lay around. You don't have no energy to do anything.
Have yourself a good breakfast, strong coffee.
We better investigate on a Friday night or a Saturday night.
Yeah, when I'd moved to Oklahoma for a couple years, and I'll tell you right now, the woods out there, I really tried to go into the woods, but their woods are so thick, like thick. It's not like the pine forest. It's so different. And there's so much more out there to be wary of. My main fear is ticks, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yep.
The ticks out there are so heavy. It's like, yeah. But there's a lot of sightings in Oklahoma. And if you went, I don't know if you've ever been to Oklahoma, but you go drive out into the woods of Oklahoma, and it's amazing. I could see why something could live out there.
So what's your next step in searching for Bigfoot, and what would you recommend for people who want to follow in your footsteps and see what they can find out there?
Find a location where there's been sightings, and what I do is I go on the BFRO website and I look for recent sightings or sightings of that area, and wherever there's the heaviest sightings, like I picked the Mogollon Rim because there's been 32 reported encounters, and there's probably more, but not everybody will talk about it or report it. And just go camping like regular campers. Just do your thing. The first night, don't do knocks or calls or anything. And in the daytime, go explore the area. See what's around you. You know, is there water? Is there trails? Just look around, find out what kind of animals are in the area. And then maybe the next night, try some calls.
Yep.
Or, whatever you want. I brought, actually, the peanut butter and jelly Uncrustables with me. Sweet treats, things like that. Just try what you can. Do whatever you can. Just try whatever you feel like trying. And you're going to have experience or you're not. It's a long shot. But I'm going back this summer to the area that I discussed with that guy that had his encounters out there with the vocalizations. I'm going there this summer.
Oh, all the best. Please tell us if you find anything. We'd like to hear about
Absolutely.
it.
I would love those vocalizations. I would throw something at my tent. I would love that.
Yeah, interact with me, please.
I'm sure you developed a tough skin where that's something you want. You developed a tough skin by now, so that would actually be something that would be welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, the paranormal's helped me a lot with the Bigfoot research. My skepticism's there.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that this is a flesh and blood thing that could probably kill me if it wanted to, so I'm not going to push too hard. I just go out there and do my thing and see what happens. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Exactly. Collect what you can, understand what you can.
Have you had any websites or
paranormal research?
Yeah, I imagine.
Are there any websites out there or any videos where they talk about your work? If people wanted to find out more about the work you've done, where could they go look?
I have not published anything so far. because, I mean, I go out there with my camera and stuff, but if nothing's going on, what am I going to publish?
Yeah.
I don't want to walk around. I've seen so many videos where they walk around in the woods and talk about Bigfoot, but to me, that's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
If you talked and ran into one face to face, that's different.
Exactly. I just think, have your camera ready. I'm going to have my camera ready, and if at 2 in the morning I start hearing anything, if I hear a tree knock, I'm getting up.
Yep.
And that's when I'm going to start trying to interact.
Good discipline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Well, we wish you all the best on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd love to hear more. And
yeah, I hope I have more to share. I would love to be able to share some of that. It would be great.
You will.
I'm really gung-ho about it.
We think you will. We think your hard work's going to pay off.
I hope so.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time out on your day off to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun.
Absolutely.
Really
yeah,
fun.
we learned a lot.
I know, actually I have more than I knew before.
Yeah, I've learned. We've learned a lot, and I think for people who are starting on this is going to be a great conversation to listen to, and very helpful.
Yep.
Exactly. And you guys are in California?
San Francisco.
Yeah.
San Francisco. Love the city. It's beautiful. I love the 49ers. I'm a 49ers fan. Cried when they lost the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Maybe sometime we could set something up in Northern California. Would you
That
like
would be
to go
great.
to Bluff Creek?
Oh, yeah, Bluff Creek would be awesome.
Oh, that would be great.
I would love to go to Bluff Creek. Maybe we could set something up next year and we could go out to Bluff Creek. We could do
Yeah.
paranormal and Bigfoot together.
That'd be awesome.
That would be very cool. And if you're ever in the city, call us and have dinner.
Yep.
Yeah,
I will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you, Diane.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right. That was a really good interview.
That was incredible. She is one perceptive lady.
I know.
I am so glad we had the chance to talk with her. This was really rewarding, and it's going to really open ground for some future and past Bigfoot hunters, I think.
Yeah, I think she has the right approach, because I know you see all these TV shows where there's tons of equipment and there's so many people on these shows investigating. If I was Bigfoot, if you had 20 people there with all that equipment, I wouldn't come around.
No, you'd run away.
But the fact that she's, her own instincts, a recorder and a camera, and she's gradually camping overnights
And building trust.
doing little things at a time, you're more apt to get a Bigfoot who's curious. There's one or two people. I'll go take a look. Oh, look, what did they leave on that log? Let me go look closer. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder what this is. I'm going to leave something on the log. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
That seems more organic and natural, and a good way to do that than someone who's, all right, we have 15 cameras with 12 lights and are aiming all at the forest. All right, Bigfoot, if you're out there, come out with your hands up.
That's just media sensation.
Well, that's what a lot of these TV shows seem
I know.
like. So,
I wouldn't be surprised if Diana actually ended up being one of the few people to actually get something concrete. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with her approach.
persistence, patience, and just a little more understanding on what you're actually doing. You know, and it always, it's the same thing applies to Bigfoot as it does to ghost hunting, Bigfoot hunting. Nobody's really hunting anything.
Right.
You're researching, you're investigating, you are looking to have some kind of concrete interactive proof
the
that
word
they
research
exist.
is so much better describes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bigfoot researcher, paranormal researcher, then ghost hunter or Bigfoot hunter.
Right.
I know hunting makes it sound more exciting on TV, I'm sure.
It does, but it also doesn't have a very good sound to it. I mean, when you're hunting, it's like, what are you going to do when you catch it?
Yeah, hunting implies killing. And
Right.
I don't think in either field that's what you're doing. Like UFO
Right.
hunting, you're not hunting UFOs either.
Yeah, it's more research and gathering information,
Yep.
and then seeing what comes next. And,
Exactly.
And she has the right approach, and I'm so glad we had the chance to talk to her.
Yeah, I'll be curious of if she captures anything coming up.
Yeah.
Have her back on, talk about it.
Yeah, it'd be great to have her back on again.
Yep. All right, folks. That's it for this week. And until next week, we'll see you then.
See you next week. Bye.
Royalty-free, copyright-free music by Kevin MacLeod and Ross Bugden.